Hello, this is Adam with DreamMade Productions. This video is made possible by the very kind donations of viewers like you. Thank you. If you are in a position to help this channel improve quality and grow, please visit my Patreon page at www.patreon.com/DreamMadeProductions, linked below.
It is the 31st century, and mankind is once again at war. The battlefields of the future are dominated by huge robotic war machines known as battlemechs.
On December 27th, 2766, Stephen Amaris's assassination of Richard Cameron ignited a firestorm that left no part of the known galaxy untouched. In those first few hours, chaos reigned, and legends were made. While most of the loyalist SLDF forces in the Sol system would not escape, a few units, in the process of departing, along with a collection of civilian ships, managed to slip through the gauntlet, thanks largely to the bravery of the SLS Dreadnought and her crew. Among these escapees were SLDF mech warriors, support staff, and eventually civilian volunteers bound for various assignments. Separated from the Dreadnought, two civilian jump ships carrying whatever drop ships could reach them managed to jump away. The Sekinori Maru and the SS Jervis Bay leapt from system to system until coming to rest at planetoid LK-135 and the mining base located there. The Titan Rare Minerals Corporation's mining and shipping facility soon became a home base for a hodgepodge of refugees, displaced mech warriors, officers, workers, ship crew, technicians, and other scattered arrivals. For months, the group raided nearby RimWorld's Republic assets, stealing what they could. Stephen Amaris issued a decree. Remaining SLDF holdouts must surrender or be considered outlaws. With that declaration, the group found its name. But deep in the bowels of the mining base, a problem was brewing. The facility, designed to support a few dozen miners and their equipment, was now sustaining 2 jump ships, half a dozen small drop ships, 3 companies of mechs plus support equipment, personnel, civilians, and hastily added infrastructure. The civilian nuclear reactor running daily near overload began to fail. With toxic coolant threatening to leak into the ventilation system, the outlaws had no choice but to abandon anything not fully functional and flee their temporary refuge. In danger of being cornered by Republican forces, they committed themselves to a planet still resisting the Amaris takeover and soon found themselves landing on the contested world of New Dallas. New Dallas was not merely another jewel in the crown of the Terran hegemony. It was a critical nerve center within the Star League's web of logistics, defense, and political identity. Strategically located near Borton and Marcus, New Dallas occupied a crossroads position in the inner line of hegemony defenses, controlling access routes through one of the League's richest agricultural and industrial corridors. At the structural level, New Dallas was home to 3 Castle Bryans. These installations alone rendered any planet a prime military asset, but New Dallas's significance extended even further. Thanks to a century of intensive terraforming, funded by hegemony authorities, New Dallas transformed from a marginal, barely inhabitable world into a subtropical paradise, noted for its vast fertile farmland and natural resources. By 2766, its mega farms and ranches provided food for more than a dozen surrounding systems, underpinning not just the local economy, but also the strategic self-sufficiency of the hegemony's core worlds. The planet's urban centers clustered around natural features like Lake Galvez, and the industrial city of New Angelo also boasted substantial technology and processing sectors. During the Star League era, the region's cities were instrumental in the development and maintenance of advanced military hardware, including weapon systems supplied to the favored New Dallas militia and SLDF bases. Just as critical was the planet's identity and political posture. New Dallas, colonized in 2354 primarily by settlers from Texas on Terra, fostered an enduring culture of rugged individualism and suspicion towards distant authority. This prompted both a closer integration between local elites, such as the planetary militia, and the broader hegemony, and also periodic tensions with Central Star League policies. The combination of local pride, advanced military technology, fiercely loyal armed forces, and a population numbering over 3.4 billion at its height made New Dallas an indispensable, if sometimes problematic, pillar of the Star League community. Its opposition to First Lord Cameron's policies and the suspicion it cast on the RimWorld's Republic presence made it an outliner among hegemony worlds. One that would resist being co-opted by Stephan Amaris' scheme more forcefully than most. As a further testament to its importance, New Dallas was one of the few worlds selected for secret intelligence operations by the Hegemony Central Intelligence Directorate, or HCID, beneath the militia barracks in Cato City. Under the control of House Amaris, the RimWorld's Republic was both a periphery nation and a proxy for Stephan Amaris' ambition. Its army, the RimWorld's Army, or RWA, boasted significant numbers, but relied on mercenaries and political intrigue. The RWA's role on New Dallas was an official garrison, sent ostensibly to replace Star League forces drawn off for the periphery uprising. In reality, their presence drew suspicion and outright hostility from local authorities, particularly in light of mounting evidence of sabotage and covert operations on behalf of the future emperor. Meanwhile, the SLDF was the elite multinational military of the Star League, charged with both internal security and external defense. On New Dallas, the SLDF maintained a substantial presence, bolstered by a deep pool of reservists, retired officers, and training centers vital to the royal divisions. Unlike many other hegemony worlds, New Dallas, thanks in part to its political clout and history of military excellence, was able to marshal both active SLDF units and locally recruited regulars as hostilities approached. The New Dallas militia, perhaps the most singular entity in the conflict's prelude, the New Dallas militia was functionally a hybrid of planetary militia and Star League auxiliary, receiving preferred access to advanced technology and organizational training outlined for royal divisions. Its unique status with roots in both local and league traditions made it a force to be reckoned with, and a symbol of resistance to external subversion. Formed from the remnants of SLDF personnel and civilian volunteers who escaped the Sol system during the Amaris coup, the Outlaws represent a rare convergence of desperation, discipline, and defiance. Once a full battalion, now reduced to a reinforced company, they operate with salvaged equipment, hardened experience, and a symbolic command structure led by a retired Royal Black Watch officer. Though lacking formal recognition, their cohesion and battlefield tenacity have made them a wild-card presence on New Dallas. Neither militia nor regular army, but a force shaped by exile and driven by purpose. The fates of New Dallas in the Amaris crisis was tied to the personalities of its defender and invading leaders. These individuals were pivotal in the tension, drama, and tragedy of the prelude to war. Tychus Clay, Planetary Governor, New Dallas. A retired Star League Defense Force general, Clay epitomized both the planet's independent spirit and its close ties to its hegemony militaracy. His opposition to the policies of First Lord Richard Cameron and to Ameris's infiltration of the hegemony marked him as a vocal, sometimes blunt, critic in the Star League's leadership. As the governor of New Dallas, Clay was not only a political authority, but also a military organizer, mobilizing the New Dallas militia at the first sign of RimWorld's deployments, and refusing to permit Republican forces access to the planet's vital fortresses and command centers. Clay's unwavering defense set the tone for New Dallas's pre-coup stance. When General Victoria Benenbaum arrived with orders, ostensibly under General Alexander Kerensky's seal, to occupy the Castle Bryans, Clay responded with outright laughter, ordered her ejection from his office under armed guard, and revoked all landing clearances for Republicans. His subsequent declaration of emergency would frame the earliest, desperately coordinated resistance to the coup. Major General Carlos Catagaga, Senior SLDF Officer, New Dallas. Catagaga's legacy is inevitably linked to New Dallas's unique defense posture. A career SLDF officer, Catagaga had experience as a decorated company commander and was instrumental to the development of advanced recruit training for the elite SLDF divisions. He was responsible for rallying SLDF reservists and integrating them with the militia following Governor Clay's call to arms. His dual-pronged mobilization allowed New Dallas to field one of the largest, best equipped, and best prepared defensive forces in the hegemony on the eve of the coup. Catagaga's proficiency in fieldcraft and tactics came to the fore in the early stages of Operation Apotheosis. He personally led the defense against RimWorld sabotage, oversaw deployment of SLDF recruits to various flashpoints, and ensured that mercenary forces attempting to land in advance of the coup were detained as terrorists, their equipment seized. In combat, Catagaga commanded from the cockpit of his customized VTR-9B Victor, personally engaging Republican forces on the ground and orchestrating resistance to both ground and orbital incursions. General Victoria Benenbaum. Benenbaum was a RimWorld's Army general handpicked for both her loyalty to Ameris and her reputation for ruthless efficiency. Charged with command of the 62nd Republican Brigade, the 6th Republican Guards, and the 154th Ameris Dragoons, she was responsible for orchestrating the Republican preparation and attempted execution of the coup on New Dallas. Her credentials as a combat commander and her apolitical allegiance made her a favored agent. Despite her authority and the weight of her orders, Benenbaum was stonewalled at every turn by Clay and Catagaga. Well aware of her limitations, she devoted extensive efforts to upgrading the 154th Ameris Dragoons in the months preceding Operation Apotheosis. Knowing that open conflict was likely, her own combat skills were considerable, leading from the front in a distinctive rampage battle mech. Admiral Otto Idawu, RimWorld's Navy Task Force Commander. As the violence escalated and the first Republican ground offensive failed, Admiral Idawu was tasked with bringing overwhelming force to bear on New Dallas. Leading a 30-strong warship flotilla, Idawu combined naval assets with captured space defense system drones appropriated at jump points. His campaign of systematic orbital bombardment led to the destruction of military resistance on the surface and cleared the way for full occupation. A grim testament to the technological and numerical superiority wielded by the Ameris forces in the aftermath of the initial coup's failures. Idawu's actions resulted in the deaths of countless defenders. Major Charles Melvin, SLDF Royal Blackwatch, retired. Call sign, Ash, Royal Blackwatch. The Colonel, the Outlaws. Known battle mechs, TDR 55B Thunderbolt, Royal Blackwatch. MSK 7A Mackie, the Outlaws. Born in 2721 in Copernicus City on Luna, Charles Melvin grew up in the shadow of Earth's grandeur, but far from its privilege. His family worked in orbital logistics and reactor maintenance. Quiet, unremarkable lives. At 18, he enlisted in the Star League Defense Force and was later selected for the Royal Blackwatch after demonstrating exceptional composure during a diplomatic security incident at Unity City. Melvin's service in the Blackwatch was defined by reliability and restraint. He rose to the rank of Major, serving as a combat lance leader and later as an officer in ceremonial guard units. Upon retirement, he accepted a civilian contract as a security advisor and instructor for SLDF forces on New Vandenberg. On December 27, 2766, while preparing to depart the Sol system, Melvin witnessed the unraveling of the Star League. The assassination of Richard Cameron and the fall of Unity City triggered mass panic. Amid the chaos, Melvin was swept up with the SLDF loyalists and civilian evacuees attempting to flee. Once settled on LK-135, the resistance group began to form its hierarchy. Although other senior officers were present, Melvin's Blackwatch pedigree carried symbolic weight. In a moment of desperate consensus, he was placed in command of the ad hoc battalion that would become the Outlaws. The group unofficially promoted Melvin to Lieutenant Colonel, or simply the Colonel. During a raid against RimWorld's Republic forces occupying the Terran hegemony, Melvin led a strike on a military museum, once dedicated to the history of battlemech development. There he recovered an MSK-7A Mackie, a modernized version of the original Mackie. Though not primitive nor state-of-the-art, the MSK-7A retained the iconic silhouette and legacy of its predecessor. Melvin chose it not for its combat edge, but as a symbol, a relic from the Star League's birth, now reborn to fight its betrayers. Melvin's decision to lead the Outlaws to New Dallas was strategic. He had previously served alongside Major General Carlos Cataga during joint training exercises. Melvin knew Cataga was one of the few SLDF generals who would still be resisting Ameris' forces. Melvin believed that if the Outlaws could reach New Dallas, they might live to turn the tide, or at least die with purpose. Tagmatarchus Theodosus Braxis, 2nd Company, 154th Ameris Dragoons, RimWorld's Republic, New Dallas Garrison. Call sign, Pale Fire. Battlemech, AS-7DH Atlas II. Born in 2734 on Ordenthal, a RimWorld's Republic border colony known for its harsh climate and rigid social structure, Theodosus Braxis was raised in a culture of quiet obedience. His father was a Republic logistics officer, his mother a planetary administrator. From an early age, Braxis was taught that the Star League was a distant, decadent empire, and that the Republic was the last bastion of discipline and sovereignty. He graduated from the Republican Officer Academy on Apollo, where he showed aptitude for tactical planning and and psychological operations. Notably, he excelled in containment doctrine, strategies designed to isolate and neutralize insurgent populations without triggering mass resistance. His instructors praised his cold clarity, though some peers found him unnervingly detached. Braxis rose through the ranks during the early stages of the Ameris coup, serving as a junior officer in the 132nd Internal Security Battalion. He was present during the suppression of resistance on Kandahar, where he oversaw the pacification of civilian centers. Though he followed orders to the letter, he was known for quietly redirecting medical supplies to wounded non-combatants. The move drew quiet suspicion from hardliner political officers, while others claimed it was a calculated public relations ploy. The truth remains unclear. By 2766, Braxis had been assigned to the 154th Ameris Dragoons, a frontline unit tasked with planetary control and counterinsurgency. On New Dallas, he served under Victoria Binnenbaum down. When intelligence confirmed the arrival of a rogue SLDF force, the Outlaws, now reduced to a reinforced company, Binnenbaum down selected Braxis to lead the hunt. His assignment: operate out of the recently captured Castle Bryan Fort Bayer and eliminate the threat before it could destabilize the region. Braxis knew little about the Outlaws, beyond their designation as SLDF loyalists. He views the assignment as a career opportunity and a tactical problem to be solved, not a moral one. His approach is methodical, his demeanor quiet, and his loyalty to the Republic unshaken, but not unthinking. He pilots a new AS-7DH Atlas II, a towering symbol of Republic authority, personalized for battlefield command and intimidation. The Atlas II reflects Braxis' role as both enforcer and observer, watching, calculating, and waiting for the moment to strike, no matter the target. The prelude to open fighting saw New Dallas transform into a garrison citadel. A detailed breakdown of the major formations is essential to understanding both defensive strategy and subsequent battles. The New Dallas militia was distinguished from its contemporaries by access to cutting-edge hegemony designs, including battle mechs previously reserved for royal divisions, and by a tradition of close integration with local SLDF and HCID intelligence elements. Dating back to the early colonialization period, the militia regularly received the latest weapons, armor, and vehicles, and constructed underground bunkers or boneyards for storage of advanced and legacy systems. These training and supply programs brought its capabilities up to the level of an SLDF line regiment, if not better, and prepared the militia for rapid mobilization in crises. At the time of the coup, the militia fielded roughly 3 regimental equivalents of combined arms troops, with most senior personnel former or reserve SLDF officers. The unit was organized along lines mirroring both traditional planetary defense units and SLDF regimental doctrine, and was supplemented by retired veterans and volunteers. A unique feature of the militia was its stewardship of the massive underground bunker constructed during the early terraforming period. Initially a domed habitat, this boneyard stored decommissioned and surplus military hardware, eventually including a secret memory core installed by the HCID. The memory core archive, integrated into the planetary communications and defense network, was designed for ongoing automatic updates, enabling unparalleled institutional knowledge and data access. Direct Star League Defense Force units on New Dallas saw their numbers drastically reduced prior to 2766 as Kerensky deployed the bulk of the regular army to the periphery. However, through proactive leadership, General Kataga, in accordance with the directives of Governor Clay, the remaining SLDF bases became staffed not just by regulars but also by vast pools of reservists and retired personnel, many of whom had received advanced training in Kataga's programs. Though specific unit designations are lost to history, it is known that the 33rd Recon Squadron of the SLDF 3rd Fleet used outer system positions as a home port, utilizing an abandoned ice mining facility to stage surprise jumps within half an hour's notice, potentially reinforcing planetary defenses in the event of siege or blockade. New Dallas's 3 Castles Bryan, enormous deep mountain fortresses, served as both regional and planetary command centers. These fortifications, fortified with independent power, hardened communications, food supplies, and armories capable of sustaining multi-regimental garrisons, could withstand nuclear and orbital bombardment for extended periods. They also functioned as fallback positions for the militia and SLDF, as well as focal points of contest with RimWorld's forces, who sought to control them via forged orders. Fortress Golad on Trinity, the largest and hub for SDS network control. Fort Bayeux on Elam and Fort Janto on Reunion were anchored defense belts across continental interiors. Fort Resolute on the Trinity coast, scene of the Republican HQ and critical ground combat. The New Dallas Space Defense System, a legacy of hegemony engineering, was among the most advanced planetary defense networks in existence prior to the Ameris crisis. Consisting of drone warships, satellites, and control stations tied to major fortresses and jump points, the SDS could autonomously intercept and destroy incoming hostile spacecraft, including capital-class vessels. Kataga's troops successfully used the SDS network to destroy an initial Republican warship squadron, though later Republican advances at jump points ultimately turned portions of the SDS against the planet itself. Integral to New Dallas's defense posture was a substantial complement of aerospace fighter squadrons. These forces, drawn from both the militia and reservist SLDF pilots, staged from fortified hangars and airfields strategically placed at Castles Bryan and major cities such as Catago City and New Angelo. Prior to the main assault by Admiral Idawu, these squadrons were ordered into desperate battles against overwhelming Republican naval forces, managing to delay orbital bombardment for several vital hours at the cost of near total destruction. Ameris's plan relied on infiltration and overwhelming force. Republican deployments to New Dallas included the 154th Ameris Dragoons Regiment, part of the 62nd Republican Brigade, 6th Republican Guards. Additional mercenary battalions intended to cover saboteurs and rapid response contingents. The 62nd Republican Brigade, the parent formation of the 154th and other armored and infantry regiments. Republican forces reported directly to General Victoria Benenbaum, with limited supervision or interference from higher command. The 154th Ameris Dragoons benefited from late-stage equipment upgrades, likely receiving some of the best battle mechs and armored vehicles available to the RimWorld's units. When first colonized, New Dallas was a sweltering, greenhouse gas-choked wasteland, barely inhabitable and requiring underground settlements. A century of terraforming transformed it into a lush, subtropical world with extensive savannas, forests, and plentiful water. 62% surface coverage by 2766. 3 vast continents, Elam, Reunion, Trinity, form the basis for economic and urban planning, with Reunion and Trinity connected by a land bridge and extensive coastlines. Seasonal weather was dramatic, featuring tornadoes and gale force winds, especially in transitional months. Key planetary locations included Catago City, the capital, seat of government, and featured a large spaceport. Lake Galvez cities, industrial and technological hubs with Galvez City and others focused on advanced research and manufacturing. New Angelo, a heavily industrialized city, home to vast oil reserves. And of course, the castles Bryan built atop or inside mountains, each an underground city and military fortress. Besides its military aspects, New Dallas's identity was defined by its role as a granary and manufacturing powerhouse. The breadbasket reputation based on mega farms, ranches, and long growing seasons underpin not just planetary self-sufficiency, but also the strategic calculations of hegemony defense planners. Wiping out New Dallas would mean famine and loss of morale for many adjacent worlds. Oil reserves and high-value mineral extractions rounded out a robust, diversified economy. By late 2766, with the RimWorld's Republic garrison boxed into outlying training grounds and under continuous surveillance, New Dallas felt itself perched on a knife edge. Political debates raged throughout Catago City and Lake Galvez's urban centers. Attacks by sponsored periphery terrorists were met with real police action and hands-on militia countermeasures, often involving officers using actual field experience scenarios for their SLDF recruits. The success of local detection and suppression forced the Republicans into ever more desperate stratagems, including plans for mass sabotage and assassination when the coup was finally triggered. The combination of high morale, high alertness, and intensive drill created a mood reminiscent of Terra during its long sieges, a mood amplified, not dampened by skepticism towards distant SLDF authorities and open hostility to the Republican interlopers. New Dallas on the edge of the Ameris crisis was a world once confident, embattled, and fated for tragedy. Its defenders, Governor Titius Clay and Major General Carlos Cataga, were emblematic of the planet's unique independent spirit. The New Dallas militia, equal parts mythic and modern, represented the best traditions of Terra's inheritors, marshaling royal-grade tech, urban fortresses, and collective will. Yet, as Operation Apotheosis loomed, even the best-prepared defenders could not forestall the cataclysm that would follow. Orbital bombardment, occupation, and eventual dissolution of an age. And the struggles of Clay, Cataga, Benenbaum and their soldiers, amidst the secret intrigues of the HCID, the roar of aerospace battles, and the clang of battle mechs defending hidden bunkers. The fate of New Dallas and the Star League itself were bound together. When the fighting finally began, the fire spread like dried brush soaked in gasoline. Conflict marked by savage fighting, orbital bombardments, and no quarter-given brawls. Into this chaos, the SS Jervis Bay slipped past the former Star League jump point defenses, delivering its 3 dropships of deadly cargo to the continent of Elam. Hello, this is Adam with Dream Made Productions. Thank you for watching my content. It really means a lot that you have given me the chance to entertain you. If you would like to support the channel, please visit my Patreon at patreon.com/DreamMadeProductions, linked below. Also below is a link for PayPal, or links if you would like to send crypto, if that's more your thing. Please know any amount that you give will be cherished and used to upgrade equipment and improve the channel. You can also help the channel by subscribing, turning on notifications, liking, commenting, and sharing my channel with anyone you think might be interested. Thank you again for watching, and I hope you enjoy the battle reps that are to come. Proceeding Operation Opioth... Why is this word so hard?